Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, scientists found fossilized vomit from 66 million years ago.
Hey, Tony Kornheiser, my bad. I went hard at a frat party. That's funny. That's funny. I think that's a good
I hope there probably were frats 66 million years ago. If you go as far as you go back in history, there were frat boys. Frat boys.
Yeah.
Every era, every century,
fossilized
every
vomit, as they say in Spinal Tap, not his own vomit. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Browns and Shedeur Sanders, the Tom Brady Trophy, and Kendrick Perkins joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with Hal Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, pleading poverty of sorts. Steinbrenner, whose Yankee payroll is the third largest in baseball, is apparently worried how much money the Dodgers are spending. Steinbrenner said on the Yes Network, quote, "It's difficult for most of us owners to be able to do the kind of thing the Dodgers are doing," unquote. Wilbon, the Dodgers just signed reliever Kirby Yates, after signing reliever Tanner Scott, after signing Japanese starter Roki Sasaki, after signing Cy Young winner Blake Snell. How does Steinbrenner sound to you?
I don't want to hear any Steinbrenner, anybody named Steinbrenner, whining about spending. And it's just so bad. Consider the source. If it came from somebody else, you say, okay, they got a point. Let me declare my baggage real quickly. The Dodgers' principal owner, Mark Walter, he's, among other things, a Northwestern guy, and yes, a trustee, and somebody that I've been friendly with for a time now, and I root for Mark Walter, who I know. I do. Tony, when the Dodgers were up for sale, there were people in Major League Baseball who thought the bid was going to be like 1.6 billion, the winning bid. It wound up being 2.1 billion. So, okay, Mark Walter and whatever other people are in the ownership group, they will spend, they have spent, they do that, and they try to win every week, every month, every year they want to win. And if the Yankees are whining about that, that will really put me in the Dodgers' corner even more squarely than I am.
I am going to echo pretty much everything you're saying. I love the position that Hal Steinbrenner has carved out for himself. I love when he says, and let me get the quote right, most of us owners can't do this. Most can't, you can. You're Steinbrenner.
That's right.
Just like your father did it, George Steinbrenner, when they referred to the Yankees as the best team that money can buy. You just went out, you got Cody Bellinger, right? You got Paul Goldschmidt, right, to play with Aaron Judge, and then you had signed Max Fried. So I don't really want to hear this. I am not that upset that the Dodgers are doing this. And I believe sincerely that if the Dodgers weren't doing this, with the roster of names I just gave you, people would accuse the Yankees of doing this. If you want to equalize spending, if you want to try and get it under control, you have to have a salary cap. Baseball doesn't have a salary cap. And players don't want to have a salary cap. And I also think, Mike, and I know you agree with this, it doesn't matter how many great players you have. You got to go through 162 and then as many as 4 rounds in the playoffs, and it can turn on one start, on one pitch.
Yes, it can.
So until the Dodgers win more than one, I don't want to hear this.
Yankees, Steinbrenner, please. Let's move to the potential pairing of the Browns and Shedeur Sanders. The Browns own the second pick in the upcoming draft and need a quarterback. Dion has told FS1 and the podcast $1 Million Worth of Game that he will privately make sure his son doesn't go to the wrong team. Now, Browns GM Andrew Berry said yesterday, quote, "I don't anticipate that being a problem," and he complimented Dion as a Hall of Fame dad. Tony, the Browns, one of those teams you think Shedeur should avoid.
So I have no idea who Dion wants to see his son go to. Tennessee has the first pick. Cleveland has the second pick. The Giants go third. Dion, as we both know, is a star guy. Maybe he'd like to see him with the Giants because if you follow Joe Namath's career in New York, not with the Giants, you understand that if you do well in New York, the entire world is open to you. Make it there, make it anywhere is what the song says. I would avoid Cleveland like the plague. I would avoid Cleveland and Carolina because their owners have proven that they are awful. The Browns ownership signed Deshaun Watson to a ridiculous contract. not just because of the behavioral lawsuits, but because when he's on the field, he isn't any good. He had the lowest QBR of any quarterback this past year. Now he's hurt. It's a second Achilles. You don't know if he's ever going to play again. When he went out the first time, the Browns put in Joe Flacco, and he got them to the playoffs. Then the Browns said, we don't want Joe Flacco anymore. We don't want him. So they bring in Jameis Winston, I believe, who they had to bench after a couple of games. This proves to me, Mike, that the Browns know nothing about the quarterback position. And if I know that, I think Dion knows it too.
Well, Tony, not exactly a shock, by the way, that you would say, oh, go to New York and skip, Cleveland. And a great shock there. You know what, Tony? I don't know. There are other things Cleveland has done. They've made the playoffs a couple of times in the last 5 years under Stefanski. So they have not been, hopeless. They haven't been hopeless. And so I'm
criticizing the ownership, Mike. I'm going after ownership, not coaching. Ownership.
Okay, but if I'm Dion and I've got the relationships I've got through football on every staff in the country, college and pro, Dion's going to do some due diligence here. And I don't know I don't know which team he's specifically referring to. Cleveland has not had a great record when it comes to quarterbacks. How far we got to go back? Bernie Kosar? I mean, it's been a long time. They're nearly as bad. No, they're actually worse than the Bears. They're in the same boat. And that can concern any father. I get it. But I don't want to just say, oh, Cleveland is a place where you shouldn't go. People might have said that about the Cavaliers. LeBron made that work okay, didn't he? So I think there's a lot more and a lot of subtlety that has to be explored before we figure out whether the Browns are not worthy of Shedeur.
Yeah. LeBron went to Cleveland because it was his hometown. Shedeur Sanders' hometown.
Still made it work.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Made it work.
Let's move. Yeah, but he had a reason to, motivation. Let's move to Bill Belichick's comment about the name of the Super Bowl trophy. Belichick told Jim Gray on the Let's Go podcast, quote, players win games. You can't win games without good players. I don't care who the coach is. It's impossible, unquote. Gray then responded, they didn't name it the Star Trophy. It's named the Lombardi Trophy, unquote, to which Belichick said, quote, well, maybe they should name it the Brady Trophy. He won 7 of them, unquote. Wilbon, do you agree with Belichick?
I don't loudly or strongly disagree. I see his point. And to his point, the NBA, Tony, sort of created a couple of awards when you win the Western and Eastern Conference, respectively, for Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And so that's what they've done. And there's another trophy, the Bill Russell Trophy. So the NBA has done this, and you look and say at other leagues, okay, Belichick has a point here. But I don't think you have to throw away Vince Lombardi. Just name something after Tom Brady. It's fine. Introduce a trophy. I hesitate to say this because on one hand I say don't get rid of Vince Lombardi. The Rozelle Trophy could be renamed. The commissioner, not a coach. You can find something and some way to honor justifiably Tom Brady without casting aside Vince Lombardi.
Let me go to the Tom Brady thing first and then take the larger picture here. If you do this with Tom Brady, and I understand that because he's won 7, and nobody else has won more than 4. He's way out ahead. But at the moment, if he looks in his rearview mirror, he sees Patrick Mahomes. And as we know, objects in the rearview mirror may be bigger than you think they are. And if Patrick Mahomes gets to 7 and ties Brady, or Patrick Mahomes gets to 8 and passes Brady, then what do? So I'm fine with the Lombardi Trophy. I agree with Bill Belichick that players win games. Where we disagree is I think he's saying coaches don't matter as much as I think they matter. I think with 2 relatively equal teams, coaches matter a lot. And Vince Lombardi, he's the standard by which all football coaches are measured.
Yeah.
Not George Halas, not Bill Walsh, not Don Shula, not Bill Belichick. Vince Lombardi. There was a Broadway play called Lombardi. It's about Vince Lombardi. You let me know when the play Belichick opens at the Belasco Theater. I want to be there for that because I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to stay. I want to stay with the name Vince Lombardi on that trophy.
I do too. That's what I'm saying. Create something else and name it Tom Brady. If the NBA can figure out a way to name something after Magic and Larry, then the NFL should get creative. And by the way, Belichick taking up for Brady? That sort of goes against all that we've heard over the last couple of years, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if Brady would want to rename the Lombardi Trophy the Belichick Trophy. Let's take a break. Coming up, is Anthony Davis right to want the Lakers to add a center? We're going to ask Kendrick Perkins.
We're also going to ask Perk whether the Kings should be actually open to trading De'Aaron Fox, their best player.
I mean, Vince
Domino's.
ESPN NBA analyst Kendrick Perkins. We're going to start with a team you know well, the Houston Rockets, because you live in Houston. They beat the Hawks last night. That's 4 wins in a row for them. They beat the Cavaliers twice. They beat the Celtics once. How seriously, and I know we're months out, but how seriously do you take the Houston Rockets as a title contender?
Well, let me say this. It brings me joy that the Rockets are back to being relevant, okay? I grew up a Elijah Warren fan, Clutch City, Mario Elie, Vernon Maxwell. Those were my guys. But when I look at this Houston Rockets team, they did extremely well in the draft, right? Drafting Jalen Green, Alfred Şengün, Tari Eason, right? Amen Thompson. Now you have your young guys. But with those young guys, you need culture. They have that in Ime Udoka, who we saw brought that to the Boston Celtics, coming from the San Antonio Spurs. And now you have Fred VanVleet, Steven Adams, and Jeff Green. 2 of those guys have championships. But, Tony, I'm not ready just yet to say that they're legit title contenders. I think their ceiling is second round. Would I be surprised if they make it to the conference finals? Absolutely not. But what the Rockets have going, and this is why I've been on the record saying, no, don't trade for De'Aaron Fox. No, don't trade for Jimmy Butler. You got something great that you build from the bottom up, great young core with a mix of vet and a great coach. Let the cards play out the way that they're going to be played.
Perk, it is cool that they're relevant again. Okay, we're going to move to a team which you are even more familiar with, the Boston Celtics. Perk, they're 6-6 in their last 12, and I've been saying for 2 weeks they're bored. But is it more than that?
It's not. It's not. Look, they're bored and they're tired. We got to remember, not only did they have a deep run to go to the NBA Finals to win the championship, but Drew Holiday, okay, Derek White and Jason Tatum, all those guys a month later went over and got a gold medal and came back 2 weeks before a training camp. They're to the point where they're just saying, let's get past the All-Star break. Let's get to the All-Star break for guys to get their mentality back, get away from basketball, and then when it matters the most, they have an on switch. Because everybody around the world is in a panic. I'm like, keep a cool booty. Oh, they're not making threes. They didn't make threes last year in the NBA Finals. But you know what they hung their hats on? Defense. And that's what they have. They starting 5 have 5 guys that could potentially be all defensive players, especially on the perimeter. So I'm not worried about the Boston Celtics. They know how to turn it on, and they will turn it on when it matters the most.
Perk, one of your favorite guys in the league is in the news, De'Aaron Fox, because it sounds like Sacramento, even though they've gone 11-4 to Doug Christie, are considering trading De'Aaron Fox. I know he hasn't committed to a long-term deal, but should Sacramento be thinking the way they're playing now about trading away De'Aaron Fox?
Absolutely, because they don't have a guy that's all in. And we got to remember, who is De'Aaron Fox's agent? That damn Rich Paul. And you know he's going to get what he want. One, he want max dollars for his client, and he's not going to take anything less. And so when you think about the options that he have right now, we're hearing the rumors and whispers, especially reported from Shams, about maybe, him wanting to go play with Victor Wembanyama. Why not? I would rather go play with Wemby than play with Sabonis, and I'm not throwing any shade on Sabonis. I'm just saying, we're talking about Wemby, who is box office, right? But when I look at it, I'm like, at the end of the day, De'Aaron Fox has done some great things in the Kings uniform. But I think De'Aaron Fox will be better in a different organization. I would like him to be with the Nuggets, playing alongside Jokic. But Bobby Marks shut that down on me today and said they can't trade Jamal Murray and they don't have picks, so it can't happen.
We will get you out of here on this, and we will talk about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is out a week with an abdominal strain. He has called on the Lakers to go get a center so that he can play more power forward. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Think about this, Tony. Anthony Davis played his best basketball at the power forward position, and the Lakers won the NBA championship when he was playing alongside Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Anthony Davis don't want to be in the paint all the time. He don't mind, but at the end of the day, you need somebody to take the pressure off of him and allow him to be the one of the most skilled power forwards that we've ever seen. And they have bigs that are out there. Now it has to be the right big. I love the kid Walker from Utah. I think maybe you could get a 2-for-1 if you want to go get Colin Sexton, because I feel like they still need to address the perimeter defense. But Anthony Davis is right, and it's going to show now, because who are they going to lean on? They going to play Jared Vanderbilt at the 5? They going to play Rui Hachimura at the 5? Like, who's going to play the center? Who's going to be that big? We saw Tyrese Maxey last night eat their lunch up, especially getting in the paint with no AD.
Thank you, Perk. It's a pleasure when you're on the show. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you, man.
you.
I appreciate
Thank
y'all
you.
having me, legends.
Yeah. Let's take one last break. Still to come, Mike McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury pull themselves out of consideration by the Saints.
And Connor Bedard somehow scores from a difficult angle. I like De'Aaron Fox, that suggestion Perk has on Denver.
Tonight up.
Happy time, people. Happy 65th birthday, Greg Louganis. Probably the greatest American diver of all time. Louganis won gold medals in the 3-meter springboard and the 10-meter platform events in 1984 in Los Angeles and 1988 in Seoul. That's 4 golds. Louganis also won a silver medal in the 10-meter platform in 1976 in Montreal, and it's reasonable to believe our boycott of the 1980 Olympics in Moscow cost Louganis a few medals. In the 1988 games, Louganis smacked his head on the board while doing a reverse somersault in a preliminary round and was totally bloodied. He came back to win gold a week later, and that's like the Jack Youngblood of diving.
Tony, you said greatest American diver. Isn't it possible that Louganis is just the greatest diver of all time and he was robbed of a chance to compete in another Olympics? I was on a flight leaving Seoul, and Louganis was on that flight. And they had a little bandage at that point still. That could have been a lot more serious than it was. He's to me, he's the GOAT.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, probably so. Not so happy anniversary, Brock Purdy. On this day 2 years ago, the last overall pick of the 2022 draft injured his right elbow on San Francisco's 6th offensive snap against the Eagles in the NFC Championship, and he had to leave the game. Purdy returned in the third quarter in obvious discomfort, attempted only 2 passes. 49ers lost 31-7, and Purdy was diagnosed with a complete tear of his UCL, which left him unable to throw a ball more than 10 yards. Purdy had surprised everyone by becoming the Niners starter in 2022, and he returned in 2023 to lead all quarterbacks in passer rating. 49ers made the Super Bowl, losing there to Kansas City. This year was different. The Niners limped to a 6-11 record, and Purdy was 6-9 as the starter.
Tony, you know this. You don't get a long leash at that position in San Francisco. Even if you were terrific a minute and a half ago, they'll give you 1 more minute. And if this, 5 games in, 4 games in the next season, and Purdy's not back to 2023 form, they're going to be screaming for another quarterback. Still looking for Joe and Steve.
Well, yeah, when you've had Montana and Young, that's why you react that way. Happy trails to the Mercury for Brittany Griner. The 6'9" center is leaving Phoenix in free agency to join the Atlanta Dream. Griner had spent her entire career with the Mercury after the team drafted her #1 overall in 2013. She's a 10-time All-Star, including being named an honorary one in 2022 when she missed the season while imprisoned in Russia. The Mercury could also lose Diana Taurasi if she decides to retire, but they have reportedly added 5-time All-Star Alyssa Thomas from the Connecticut Sun, who's finished top 5 in MVP voting the last 3 seasons.
Alyssa Thomas would be a steal for an organization that seems to be able to put together some pieces. I know losing Brittany Griner is a big deal, Tony, in a lot of different ways.
It is.
On and off the court in Arizona. But, Alyssa Thomas could help make up for that if that team can get back in winning ways.
Let's go to the big finish. Mike McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury have pulled themselves out of consideration for the Saints head coaching opening. Does that make sense?
Is the Saints job that bad? I mean, there's only 32 of these jobs. The Saints is one of them. People won't take the Saints job? Wow, that's an indictment. Caitlin Clark passing on the NBA three-point contest with potential participants Steph, Clay, and Sabrina Ionescu. What do you think of that?
I think it's okay because she wants to make her three-point debut in the WNBA All-Star game at Indianapolis, which is where she plays with the Fever. So it's okay. USC hired away Notre Dame's football GM, Chad Bowden. Is that significant?
Tony, everybody, every big program, not even the big ones, has to have a GM of a sport now. They'll find another one. They'll have to. Rick Pitino and St. John's crushed Georgetown to go unbeaten in January. Your thoughts?
A feel from Matt Kelleher, who's at that game. Georgetown grad, bad. Last one, Connor Bedard went top shelf from an insane angle last
Great
night.
goal.
What do you think?
It's a great goal. The Blackhawks
We're
beat the
out of
Lightning
time.
4-1, which was huge. Huge.
Out of time. Try and do better next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts. And now,
PTI. Tony and Mike, PTI's bonus topic.
All right, Wilbon. Who was the best NFL coaching hire of this offseason?
Tony, I don't know. There's going to be 7 if Kellen Moore, presumably, reportedly, takes the Saints job, which people don't seem to want. There will be 7 new coaches. And I'm going to look at this differently. People look at this locally. What's their team doing? And in my case, I'm looking at it this way. Which of these teams, which of these 7 teams is poised to make the biggest turnaround directly because of the coach and the change? The Bears are certainly in that mix, and I think at the top of the list, the Chicago Bears were 4-2 and playing pretty well when they lost the Hail Mary game, and I told you they wouldn't win another game, and they didn't because they lost 10 straight and then beat the Packers the last week of the season. But, Tony, the Bears have the ingredients, the necessities, as Al Campanis once said, to make that turnaround. The Bears' losses, a lot of them, maybe 4 in a row, were directly attributed to the head coach making just bonehead decisions, one after another. So you bring Ben Johnson in. Not only is he tinkering and dealing in a major way, not tinkering, really overhauling, Caleb, I just think he's going to be a better decision maker in ways that count. So I'm going with Ben Johnson. What a surprise.
Yeah, so I think the best hire is Mike Vrabel, because I think of all the people who have been hired other than Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel is the only one who's actually done this before, and he's had some success in the NFL. His problem is he's on a terrible team. New England's a terrible team. They were 4-13. What is success? Is it 5 wins? Is it 6 wins? So I'm looking at what is the trajectory upward. I don't see it a path for Jacksonville right now. I don't see a path for the Raiders right now. Not really. I don't see a path for the Jets. I don't see a path for the Saints. So that leaves me 2 teams. That leaves me the Bears and the Cowboys. And so I would say that if you're going to make a big move, it's going to be either Ben Johnson or Brian Schottenheimer. And it's actually possible that Dallas has the stuff you need when they get the quarterback back. It's actually possible that it could be, I think it's Dallas or the Bears are going to result with the best hires.
Well, but just to put a period on it with this, Tone. Remember, a year ago, 20 weeks ago, nobody had the Washington Commanders being a team with a coach that people did not want. That hire was not greeted with open arms. People forget. They want to act like Dan Quinn arrived to, trumpets. No, he wasn't. No. He wasn't hired to that. He wasn't greeted by that. And there are teams that in the NFL, more than any other sport, flop and go worst to first or first to worst sometimes. So I don't know. I don't know that we can. That's why I'm admitting up front, I don't know. Is there another Washington on the horizon for next season in the NFL? That's it. We're done. Back to you.